All right, y'all. Today, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be diving in on intermittent fasting, specifically for fat loss. So, throughout these next 2 weeks, what we're going to be doing is just really taking a deep dive into all of the different aspects around fasting for, different various things. We can always use it for Christ connection first and foremost. But you can use it for amazing results in fat loss and also decreased inflammation, more longevity, the ability just to be able to even have the self-control and the willpower, the temperament to go without food for a longer period of time is a very, very valuable skill as well too. So there's so many different ways that we can utilize fasting. But in today's video, we're going to be specifically looking at one version of fasting, which is intermittent fasting, and how it is so powerful for fat loss. So before I go any further on this, you guys, I just want to place a little nugget here at the beginning. You can use any form of fasting to really just allow yourself to put your focus on God and have a time to where you are really just being a little bit more intentional, more intimate with Him, right? You can be intimate with Him at all times, but fasting is a great tool to enhance that, kind of like going on date night with your spouse. Fasting can be like taking Jesus on a date and you just put your focus on Him. Intermittent fasting is a tool that you can use for this. However, whenever I speak on it, primarily, I really talk about the fat loss portion of it because just what I found with coaching a ton of clients, testing all this stuff on myself, is the fact that the longer extended fasts, usually going about 20 hours or longer, 24 hours or longer, and then going into, a full day fast at 36 hours, and going into 2, 3, 4, 5 day fasts are really where that level of deepness and intimacy that people are really searching for with God starts to really just find its playing field to where it always just kicks butt. Like it's an amazing experience. So I just want to put that out there. Today we're going to be talking primarily about fat loss for intermittent fasting. You can still use this as a tool for so much more. But I've found personally that different types of fasting kind of have their own personal benefits for the body in more than one way. And intermittent fasting is the one that, without a doubt, helps out with fat loss the best, in my opinion. So, with that little nugget aside, we're going to go ahead and dive in. So, intermittent fasting, if you don't already know, which if you're in this program, you probably should have a clue in what it is, but I don't want to skip any steps here, guys. Intermittent fasting, in the simplest of ways to put it, is you're making a decision to consolidate or place all of your eating in a smaller window of the day than you might normally do this. So, for instance, where before implementing intermittent fasting, it might be something like you wake up at 7 in the morning, 7:30. You have a banana, maybe some oatmeal or some eggs, and then you kind of go through the day. Maybe at 9 o'clock you have a bagel. At 11:30, 12 o'clock you end up having lunch. 3 o'clock you have a cookie from because somebody brought them to work, and then around 6 or 7, you might have dinner, and then maybe around 9 o'clock before you go to bed, you have a bowl of cereal or something. Let's just say that, to where this is a pretty, if we run a test, I think everybody listening to this has probably had a day nearly identical to that, to where you start eating from the second you wake up, and then you end up having a nighttime snack. So, in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to fat loss, is it wrong to eat like that? Well, if you're, focusing on fat loss, the most important thing is going to be that you're in a calorie deficit. Okay. So if you don't know what this is, guys, this is to where you're burning more calories than you're taking in. So if you have to burn 2,500 calories a day just to be alive, but you ate 2,000 calories, it doesn't matter if you ate that in 6 meals or 2 meals, having 6 meals of about 300, 350 calories, or 2 meals at 1,000 calories, you're going to be in a calorie deficit. And that's what creates weight loss. A lot of people overcomplicate this, but if you want to lose weight, you only have to be in a calorie deficit. And if you specifically want that weight that you're losing to be fat, you want to be in a calorie deficit that is also high in protein, right? So I recommend most people about 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight or goal body weight or more a day is a great place to aim for when it comes to just keeping your protein up. But you can even see results if you're not like eating a lot of protein at the moment, even with like 0.5 or 0.6 grams per pound of goal body weight. So if you want to hit, 200 pounds as your goal body weight, you can see results with 100 grams of protein all the way up to 200 grams of protein. The higher, usually the better, to make sure that you are losing fat whenever you are losing the weight, because otherwise it might be muscle. So with that little caveat aside, calorie deficit's what is required for weight loss. But when we want to look at like what's required for consistent calorie deficits, right? That means you actually staying in a place to where you are eating less than you're burning for 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time, to where your goal might be to drop 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever, the specific number is. With this, the larger it is, usually the longer you're going to have to stay in a calorie deficit. So it's less important of arguing like which way is the best way to lose fat, because they all lose fat if you're in a calorie deficit. What I really want to talk about here today that steals the show with intermittent fasting is its ability for you to be consistent with it, right? So the longevity of this. So, and when we look at this, where you might be eating 6 meals a day, 300 calories each, um, eating like a bird like this is going to make you want to sit down and eat a burger, right? It's going to make you want to sit down and have some French fries or some pizza or like a big old steak and potatoes. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We as humans enjoy eating larger amounts of food to the point to where we're satisfied, but we're not necessarily overly slowed down, right? Because when you do eat, in excess, you're also going to get really slowed down afterwards. You're not going to have the most energy. Brain fog might be coming in. So there's this balance between where naturally what's going to allow us to stay the most consistent is that we're satisfied after each meal, that we feel just, man, I really don't need any more food. Because what causes binge eating is, well, I feel like I'm underfed, right? And you don't want that. And there's a difference between being underfed and fasting, because fasting is the voluntary, going without food. We learned yesterday, abstaining from food. Whereas being underfed, malnourishment, which is very real, is something that is either unconsciously, you don't know that you're doing it. So you might be following a diet plan that's putting you in malnourishment, but you just don't know, just from simply lack of education or experience in health and fitness, or, you're in like Auschwitz or somewhere where you're being tortured and somebody is, starving you. Starvation is completely different than fasting. So with this, that's what causes like binge eating. That's what causes you to, grab grab the bag of chips and not stop eating, right? Like just continue to just go and eat this whole bag of sea salt and vinegar chips, which, there's 13 servings in here at about 150 calories a pop. That's almost 2,000 calories right there in one bag. And that's not including anything else that you eat with it, right? So this type of binge eating happens because, you're not satisfied after your meals, right? You're not genuinely enjoying the way that you eat. So this is where we want to enter in with intermittent fasting, because of the fact that with intermittent fasting, if you consolidate all of your meals into most eating windows with people who are trying to lose weight and trying to lose fat, what I recommend is your eating window every day should be between about 4 to 8 hours. Some days it might be a 9 hour or a 10 hour eating window. That's really not the end of the world, but most of your time should be spent within a 4 to 8 hour eating window where you're going to be eating 2 to 3 square meals. All right. Some of those meals can be smaller or larger than others, but when we look at that same allotment of 2000 calories, if you're eating that in, two larger meals and one like smaller meal, that would look like two 800 calorie meals and one 400 calorie snack. So it'd be a lot more satisfying. You would be a lot more satisfied if instead of waking up at 7 and starting eating and not stopping till 9 o'clock, you were able to, drink a lot of water, get really hydrated in the morning time. So that way you're very focused. A lot of people don't know this, and this is an intermittent fasting, like just pro tip for fat loss, you guys, is if you get hunger pangs in the morning, start drinking more water. Because what happens is dehydration often disguises itself as hunger pangs. So this looks like if you're getting hungry at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and one thing I do want to note here is that for women, when you are getting closer to menopause just menstruation time, menopause, both of those hormones do start to come in to where those might be playing in to where you get hungry in the morning. But oftentimes it's dehydration, right? And it might be dehydration combined with hormones. But with that, it's very valuable that you just focus on drinking a lot of water in the morning. And for that, caveat there with women and around menstruation and menopause, it's actually advised too, if you are around menstruation time, to bump up your calories a little bit. Your body literally turns into even more of a furnace as it's getting ready to fuel for another life, right? So every single month around menstruation time, you should actually eat another 400 calories a day, 500 calories a day, and your body will burn it off. So oftentimes those cravings, it's not a bad idea to have a little bit of chocolate or have a little bit of an extra serving on things. So that's something to where for women, I still advise you, when it's around that time each month, like still condense your eating window down to 4 to 8 hours if your goal is fat loss. This is like what my wife Sammy does. She swears by the fact that even though she should eat more during her when it's that time of the month, still intermittent fasting, but then just allowing herself to eat a little bit more once she does break her fast. So that's just a little helpful tip for women there as well too, if you're finding the hunger being a lot for you guys around that time of the month. And then menopause is a whole nother conversation, so we'll have that one at another time. But with fasting, it makes a lot more sense to condense your calories down to about a 4 to 8 hour eating window, so that way when you're not eating, you're not eating. And then you're not really thinking about it, guys. What this allows you to be able to do is like work with more focus to be able to, study. You can dive deep into the word or into whatever, subjects you're studying, maybe in school or in life, with much higher focus. It allows you to enjoy, if you enjoy coffee or tea, you can enjoy that in the morning times as well too. And just sip on that and have a great time in the morning. Just focus on getting things done and moving at a comfortable speed and having a lot of energy. So it's very, very valuable. And then you end up eating around 1 o'clock, and let's say with that still that same 2000 calorie diet, you have an 800 calorie lunch, which might look like one of my favorites. It's super simple, you guys. People underestimate the simplicity when it comes to their meals. Is something like Dave's Killer Bread, which is like about 5 grams of protein per slice and a good amount of fiber, and um, deli lunch meat and cheese. I'll get Gouda cheese, put 2 slices of that on there, and then get about 4 to 5 ounces of, turkey or chicken and put it on a sandwich like that, right? That's about 35, sometimes 40 grams of protein with the whole thing right there. And then, with that, if I need to have a little bit like some fruit or maybe an avocado, I might put on top. That's an 800 calorie, meal right there, even a little side of chips if you want some chips, right? So that could be lunch. You get home for dinner, you end up eating something like, one of my favorites is ground beef and rice or steak and potatoes. I like red meat, and I like when it comes to carbs in the evening, I prefer white rice because it makes no dang difference, guys. If you have brown rice versus white rice, one will not help you lose weight more. So I like white rice because it tastes better. Just plain and simple. I ate brown rice for years because I thought I had to, and I want to liberate you guys from that lie. Right? We're all well, Jesus Christ is the truth. So I want to share some truth with you. When it comes to the brown rice, there, you guys don't have to eat that if you don't like it. Um, and then I'll have like or potatoes as my carbs in the evening, and then I enjoy red meat primarily because it has when you get grass-fed red meat, it's got a lot of omega-3s. You get your iron in, it's more filling with the healthy fats there within it than white meat as well too. So I've already had 2 meals, about 800 calories. And then in the evening, if I want, I could have like a bowl of cereal. I don't really have cereal at the house, but like if I want a snack in the day, I can have yogurt, I can have fruit, things like that, and actually enjoy my life and have a little bit of that flexibility to where, I still have a little bit of some calories I can play with for things that I enjoy. The best route that you guys can go is about 80% of the foods that you eat really whole foods, and then having like a 20% allotment to where it doesn't automatically go to junk food or craving foods, but you just have that there if you want it. Right. And then just focusing on that. Right. So focusing on just staying consistent with that. So we can see here with this intermittent fasting routine, guys, you're eating larger meals. You're allowing yourself to have room for some craving foods. And what's really powerful here is we're growing a muscle that ultimately is going to allow us to be able to grow in our walk as Christians, because Jesus said, not if you fast, but he said, when you fast. And he also said, when the bridegroom passes, then they will fast. Right. So this is something like in the same caliber, you guys. I know I said I'm not going to talk a lot about like the Christ connection stuff, but I can't not talk about Jesus here. Like fasting is in the same caliber as prayer and just in the same caliber as prayer and giving, when it comes to things that Christ called us to actually do, and he modeled it within his own life. And up until modern day, most people intermittent fasted naturally because there's no refrigeration. You couldn't always eat in the morning. You would wait until a meal was cooked, or the hunt came in, right, with the meat, whatever it might be. You weren't always able to eat all day long. This is a very new invention, just like the prevalence of all these heart diseases, cancer, and diabetes coming from obesity and being overweight is relatively new in the sense of how often it's happening to people and the percentages of it. So they both kind of came at the same time. So it makes sense we just go back to old habits, right? So there's kind of a remembering when it comes to intermittent fasting. If you think back to Jesus Christ, he likely intermittent fasted most days of his life. Okay. And I don't want you guys to get so caught up in this to where you become religious and you never allow yourself to go to brunch or have, breakfast or anything like that. Even if you just intermittent fasted 6 days out the week and allowed yourself to have one day where you did have breakfast, you'd still see great results, right? You'd still see great results, okay, for fat loss. So I just recommend for most people to stick with it every day. It makes it really, really easy and simple. So now what I want to dive into as I start to, kind of wrap up towards the end of this training here, because I don't want it to go super, super long, is start to look at, well, what can you guys do to intermittent fast and help out with the fat loss even more? So what can you do to kind of boost fat loss and weight loss with intermittent fasting? Okay. So when you first start off with intermittent fasting, I recommend baseline, an 8-hour eating window, 16 hours of fasting each day. What you can do to just kind of get a little bit more is to let yourself play around with smaller eating windows. So the difference between an 8-hour eating window and a 6-hour eating window, I found that in my own experience, a 6-hour eating window, still having 2 to 3 meals in there, you just feel so lean and tight. And the fasting, just those extra 2 hours and the consolidating a little bit of a smaller eating window over time, people start to lean out, lose weight really well just with that small transition. So you can think of level one is 8-hour eating window. And guys, there's no reason you need to progress through these levels too quickly. It's kind of like stay wherever you need to stay that feels good, that you can be consistent with, until it stops working. And then you can progress a little bit further, right? You don't want to necessarily move on right away. You want some aces in the back of your sleeve for fat loss. So you don't want to use all the tricks right away. But level 2 would be, hey, let's start doing 18-hour fasts with a 6-hour eating window, either every day or just letting yourself fast a little bit longer, maybe on your rest days, to where you're not working out and you don't need food as quickly or as much. And then level 3, something you guys can do, and this is actually if you're in phase 2 within weight loss blueprints, you start to see this. And same with phase 3, you throw in once a week within your fasting protocol a one meal a day, right? So this would look like one day of the week, to where if you're normally, you know, a one meal a day would look like a 20 to about a 26-hour water fast. So this would look like maybe you stop eating at 6 p.m. on Sunday and you don't eat until 4 to maybe 8 o'clock on Monday in the evening, right? And so it's not technically a full day fast. A lot of people get confused with this. It's, a one meal a day. You're just feasting on one meal a day. And with that, most people are going to take in about 40 to 60% of their normal daily caloric intake here. Sometimes up to 75% if they're like, larger men specifically, or people with really fast metabolisms here. But it's where if you normally were eating 2,000 calories, you would start to look at like, one meal a day, to where one day out the week, I like Mondays and Thursdays. Personally, if I'm going to throw these in, you might have like 1,000 to 1,500 calories. And it's just at one meal. You kind of sit down, you get as much as you possibly want at that meal. And maybe in an hour, 90 minutes, if you want like a little snack, you kind of throw that in. But you're keeping everything to about a 2 to 3 hour eating window. And your calories are going to be significantly less that day. If you do that strategically once a week, along with, a 16 or 18-hour fast the rest of the days, my goodness, guys, this will tighten you up and allow you to lose weight. So simple. It's just the fact it's being consistent, right? So it's staying with the methodology that works for you. So in the phase 2 of this program, in the beginner fasting protocol, this is something you actually start to do every week as already a part of the program, but just giving you some knowledge that way you guys can apply this as Holy Spirit leads you. And then the second way that you could level that up even more, so kind of like level 4, would be doing 2 of those a week. That's where Monday and Thursday come in. Following a strategy similar to this, but is actually like kind of level 5 or 6, going more into like the advanced fasting protocol, which is in phase 3 of the program, is how, I dropped about 20, 30 pounds in probably about 4 months, and got very, very lean as I prepared for American Ninja Warrior back in 2019. I didn't make it on the show. I just auditioned for it, and I had to get very, very lean. And so the fasting helped out tremendously with that, along with a calorie deficit, which, we're going to be talking more, guys, about calories and all of those things after the fasting. So look forward to that. But with this, it works. If you just throw in a longer fast once or twice a week, it works. And you can eventually progress that to level 5 or 6, which we see more in the phase 2 beginner fasting protocol, and then the phase 3 advanced fasting protocol, to where you might throw in a full day fast, which is like you don't eat from Sunday evening till Tuesday afternoon, right? Doing that once a week, I have never seen anybody not lose fat on that. And, intermittent fasting the other days, it just works so well. I personally prefer this over a very steep calorie deficit every day, because if you go into a full day fast on Monday every week, what this actually allows you to do is eat more food the other 6 days out the week and still lose weight if you wanted to. It takes a very strategic approach to do that, which I outlined in my fasting lifestyle ebook, which if you guys don't have that, let me know and I'll make sure you guys get a copy of that. But you can dive in there and see what I'm talking about a little bit more in detail. But these are just ways that you can start to make intermittent fasting and fasting help you out when it comes to fat loss. Without having to change a lot of what you eat, you can just add a little bit of a longer fast, whatever you can stay consistent with. And just keep diving in deeper. So there's always a next step when it comes to fasting, and it's always just finding out what feels good for you right now, and knowing that as you dive in deeper into fasting, you're also diving in deeper into like supernatural territory where you're just connecting with Jesus on such a deep level. When you truly set the intention, which if you guys haven't gone on an extended water fast using Kingdom Health principles yet, make sure to go to the fasting blueprints section of the program. So it's under the kettlebell icon on the app. And I think it's number 3, where it says fasting blueprints. And there's an extended fasting guide in there, about 8 videos. Go in there and look at like how you set your intention for an extended fast and try this out as Spirit leads you guys. It's an amazing experience. So as you grow within your intermittent fasting and whatever level that you kind of go with that model I just described there, man, you're just getting revelation after revelation and having a good time as you build up, something just as valuable as prayer and giving is in the kingdom, right? So, if we imagine fasting to be like windshield wipers, right, allows us to see with the eyes and the mind of Christ more effectively, is so powerful, just as important as praying and giving is, which are both things that Jesus called us to do, along with fasting. So I'm feeling the conversation start to wind down a little bit and starting to wrap up. One final note that I will put here for intermittent fasting is people always ask, like, what type of supplements can you take with fasting? What can you drink anything while you intermittent fast to make it easier or more effective for fat loss? And here's what I'm going to say there: the best supplement when fasting is this. H2O. It's water, right? It's water. It's going to be just the best thing for you. Then beyond that, you guys can start to get into, a few more things that will help out with allowing you to fast a little bit longer and feel better while you do it. One of those being caffeine. Okay. So this predominantly would come in the form of like coffee, espresso, or tea. However, you know, some people give me flack for this, but really, I don't think it matters. You can have artificial sweeteners while intermittent fasting. If you try it on an extended fast, you're going to regret it. But because of the fact that artificial sweeteners, they trigger a response in the body. Whenever your body takes in something sweet, it's used to there being calories there. So it starts to like get these metabolic functions going to where it's getting ready to digest food. And then when all it gets is this sugar water that's not real sugar in your body, it's 0 calories, it starts to crave food. So it can cause hunger pangs whenever you have things like diet soda, 0 calorie energy drinks, Powerade, things like that to have when you're fasting. You definitely can have one, but I've kind of found the half or the advice to be, if you're going to have something with artificial sweetener, you should probably eat within the next hour, hour and a half. Otherwise, you're going to start feeling weird and a little loopy, right? So there's nothing wrong with if you're going to break your fast at noon, maybe you have an energy drink at like 10:30 or 10 o'clock, or you use it for pre-workout during a workout, pre-workout scoops, things like that. But I recommend most people, to be honest, you just stick with, if you want caffeine, coffee, tea, or espresso, right? These are going to be the most natural forms of it, but you also don't need caffeine as well too when you fast. It's just as simple as that, guys. So caffeine's very helpful. That would be like the second supplement beyond water that I would recommend. When you do take caffeine, I highly recommend, if you're like me, I get a little like anxious when I have too much caffeine, or if I have it on an empty stomach. That's why I actually prefer to eat before I have caffeine personally. This is a newer thing in my own life. But with that being said, uh, you can take a supplement called L-theanine. It's an amino acid, and it's a nervous system relaxer that negates a lot of the anxious or jittery feelings from coffee. And whenever I have caffeine, I always take it. It's probably my number one most favorite supplement would be L-theanine, because it makes coffee more enjoyable, all forms of caffeine, because you don't get anxious or jittery. At least I don't. So that's something that you could take with it. Amino acids are all right. I don't necessarily think they're required, None of these are except for water. And then the final thing, guys, I'll show you real quick. Is just simple salt. You guys, pink salt. So you can use this by sprinkling some in your water or just grabbing a pinch, just like this. I'll show you right now. I'm fasting along with you guys. So what this is powerful for is you get some really healthy electrolytes and you allow yourself to be able to get just a deeper level of hydration. We'll talk about electrolytes in a different video, more in depth, but you just take some like this, put it on your tongue. If you'd like, you can wash it down with water. And what most people, when they're fasting, if they experience headaches or dizziness or fatigue, the second you take in some salt, guys, like you're going to feel like $1,000,000. Salt is so valuable when fasting, especially extended fasting as well too. So that's a great supplement as well. And those would really be what I recommend, guys. None of them are required with intermittent fasting except for water, but they can help to make it easier. And caffeine and the electrolytes can even help to, blunt your appetite to where you're not hungry as often. The caffeine just has a natural blunting effect of our hunger. And then the electrolytes, what ends up happening there is their relationship with the water in your body just allows a deep level of hydration happening. So like we talked about, dehydration disguises itself as hunger pangs. So if you get deeper hydration, you won't be as hungry as often, guys. So with that being said, this is intermittent fasting for fat loss, you guys. Just a final summary here. I recommend wherever you're at when you're starting, intermittent fast 6 to 7 days a week. Start with an 8-hour eating window, 2 to 3 square meals a day, and then you can progress more as you go on. I recommend that the 2 to 3 square meals a day be your foundation. I do not recommend that you guys do OMADs or 1 meal a days every day, but we'll talk more about OMADs tomorrow and dive in more on that. So thank you guys for tuning on in with this. If you have any questions, just go ahead and drop them into the group chat and we'll dive in a little bit more there. Take care, y'all. Love you guys.